Yes, sir. Welcome back. You are tuned in to the Commissioner's Conversation. Video edition. We here, we live. I got my man in the building. DeShaun Tate, how you feeling, brother?
What up, though? We do what up, though, where I come from around my neck of the woods. I know y'all what's up, shouty folks, but we
You already know.
we yeah, we what up, those. But nah, man, I'm good, man. Appreciate you for having me back. And I was really excited to be able to come back on this thing and kind of talk about just whatever kind of content you want to put together around the landscape of just basketball in general. I tell people all the time, 94 feet long, 50 feet wide,
There you go.
22 feet and 1 3/4 inches on the perimeter for the college,
Look
and
at it. Look at
23
it.
feet and 1 1/4 inches out on the perimeter for the NBA. And if that rim is 10 feet tall, baby, we get into it for sure.
There you go. Look at him. See what I'm saying? So you already know this is my guy. He's the hoops expert. DeShaun Tate, you can check him out at Takes Tate Hoops. And what's the website? Is the website the same also, Takes Tapes?
Man, we just kind of a little bit all over the place right now. Anywhere that you find your favorite podcast, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Red Circle, Spotify, Stitcher, streaming live on Periscope, on Twitch, as well as on YouTube and on Facebook. So it's gonna be hard. I'm one of them people that ain't real hard to find, man. Just throw Tate's Take in a little magnifying in a little search box where you find the magnifying glass, man. It should pop right up at Tate's Take Hoops, though, where basketball lives, for sure. Appreciate it.
Speaking of where basketball lives, man, I think we touched on it last week. And there is in the standings, in the polls, I look through, I don't see Duke.
Yeah.
I don't see the Tar Heels.
No.
I don't see the Kentucky Wildcats.
Who just lost to your Georgia Bull. Well, I know they may not be your Georgia Bulldogs. I always tease you about that, but in a roundabout way, your Georgia Bulldogs, man. First time Georgia beat Kentucky, and I don't think it was 14 meetings. It's either 14 meetings or 14 years. So I feel like it's 14 meetings.
I think it's 14 meetings. I won't say
yeah, and that happened in Athens, man. And if you've been really paying attention, I'm not gonna get long-winded, I promise. But if you've been paying attention to Georgia and Kentucky, like I don't care what team Kentucky has been putting on the floor over the course of those years. For whatever reason, in Athens, Georgia has always played them tough. Obviously, Georgia never comes with the talent that Kentucky usually does, but it's always been a tight game. And I always felt like if there was going to be a time that Georgia, without Anthony Edwards, by the way, which I think should speak volume about their team this year, at least a little bit in those regards, that if there was going to be a time to do it, you kick the dog while they're down, man. And that's exactly what Georgia did.
And it's interesting that you say that because do you think, in your honest opinion, do you think that John Calipari, well, I know he's garnered enough esteem that this should be a blip on the radar. But how long do you think that leash is? Like, how many times can he have one of these type seasons before those Kentucky Blue Bloods go, wait a damn minute, this ain't what we used to?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question, man. I brought on, and I can't think of his name right now, so please forgive me. I brought him onto my podcast, and he covers Kentucky for SEC Network. And I was even curious to know myself, like, how is there this program, which is essentially the most successful program in all of college basketball, and the top 3 most successful programs in all of college basketball history, with all of what they bring to the table. Like, they don't hang like conference championships, like they only hang national championship banners. And we know about who Kentucky was back in the day and the type of players that they didn't allow on their rosters. And then now it's like that's all their roster is filled with to an extent. But it's crazy to just think that. And it's like, okay, well, now you have that, and they're winning the recruiting battle every year between them and Duke, but they're not hanging national championship banners. And Coach Cal has made it super clear that he's about, not saying he's not about winning national championships, but he's about helping these young kids out, particularly young brothers, and getting their families fed and getting these guys to the NBA. And I can only imagine the kind of feathers that will probably ruffle within the fan base just looking at them optically.
Exactly.
So with that, I don't know, man. I mean, they had a maybe not a similar year, but I think it was 2013, the year after they won a national championship. They didn't go to the tournament. Probably the last time they didn't go to the tournament, if I had to guess. And they lost in the first round to Robert Morris. So it looked like they're kind of trending back towards that same direction. But in terms of you asking me initially, how long is that leash? I don't know how long they can go without winning I mean, winning a national championship. They've left so many of them on the table.
Right.
You know, there was the John Wall year. There was a few years ago with Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox. There was the one where they went 38-0, got all the way to the Final Four and lost to Wisconsin, and Duke eventually won in 15. So it's a lot, but I can't imagine that it happened very much longer. Then again, as many people that maybe Coach Cal has going against them, I definitely think that he has just that many supporters probably behind him and is willing to extend that leash a little bit more. I can just imagine that will probably be the case.
Now, real quick, to a guy like, let's say, BJ Boston,
Yep.
being on the team this time of year, having a down year for Kentucky, do you think that affects his stock at all?
Probably. And I think the reason behind why that is because people are tuning you out a little bit more than they typically would tune out Kentucky, just because, like, even me myself, I mean, as much of a avid basketball fan, college basketball specifically fan that I am, sometimes I see Kentucky on there and I'm like, I don't feel like watching them boys lose again. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I looked at the stats last night and I can't remember exactly where they finished at, but it's somewhere really close to me looking at what they shot. Not just Brandon Boston, who had a good game, but just looking at Kentucky and what they shot from three. Dude, they shot 7%, not 70, not 17. They shot 7% from three, and that wasn't the first time. So that they're obviously not a very good shooting team, but Brandon Boston certainly contributes to that. I think that the expectations for him, I mean, he just doesn't appear to have very much like urgency in his game. Like he just plays like so finesse, and it's just kind of like if we do, we do, we don't, we don't. But that's just his approach, as it
Now,
seems.
now,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to just jump in real quick because I think we've had these conversations about players who fit that same type mentality. I won't say the same mold, same type player, but one player that we talked
Cam.
about, Cam Reddish.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly what I was
No
going to.
doubt. No doubt. And you know what? And I think that there is something to say where I don't, first of all, I love Brandon Boston. He's one of my favorite players in college basketball coming into the season. But one of the things is um, because they only have one player that's returning from last year's team, that doesn't help. Some guys have been out with injuries and taking over games per se, especially being vocal in and out of locker rooms, in and out of timeouts and huddles, and even on the floor. That's not really who Brandon Boston is. Who he is a guy that, just like today's NBA, what you draft on is potential.
Right.
Long arms, wingspan, athletic ability, can shoot from outside. It may not seem like it, but he can. He's obviously, to me, he's going to be a much better pro than he will be a college player. May not necessarily be anything worth sneezing at, but reminds a lot of people, including me, of somebody like a Brandon Ingram, and that was kind of his deal in a sense of his approach, a similar approach
Similar.
to the game,
Right.
that is. And I think he'll be just fine. But um, they struggling, man. But it ain't all fingers don't just point to Brandon Boston. That's for sure.
That's definite. You can watch the games and you can see that. But I want to kind of transition a little bit because we talked about these blue bloods in Duke, Kentucky, UNC. They're not being ranked. They're not being talked about. So ultimately, it's like you said, out of sight, out of mind. Um, does that kind of shift some of these kids to say, well, shoot, I can go to the G League and get this, what I think it's like trying to put up $500,000 for, I can get this money, get on G League Ignite and still come out. Do you think that guys like Jonathan Kuminga, that guys like Jalen Green, are they going to be, I guess, I'm sure they're going to be lottery picks, but are they
Mm-hmm.
going to be? Are they going to make it like worth your while? Are they going to make it seem like this is the way, as opposed to going to Duke or Kansas or Kentucky?
Well, not everybody that chooses that G League option is going to be put in positions to where they can succeed the same way that Kaminga and Green has. I mean, Green got the biggest payday, obviously $500,000, like you said, but Kaminga didn't get that.
Okay.
Isaiah Todd, who initially was a University of Michigan commit, just imagine what that team could look like right now with a dude like that on their team, um, but he didn't get the big payday either. So I think there's going to be some cases where it's going to be swept under the rug that some of these players are going to try and go the G League route, and they're going to have certain expectations. But if you're not that guy,
Right.
then you know what I'm saying. Then I'm not sure how well it'll work out. I don't think the collegiate experience and the way to go is bad. I mean, Greg Brown, who is a freshman at the University of Texas in Austin, turned down, I think, essentially about 300K to go to Texas, and what he's able to experience there. Nothing is going to be, you got the rest of your life to work. You got the rest of your life to be a professional. You got the rest of your life to deal with this business. Enjoy that college life, even if it is for a semester. You know what I mean? Like big man on campus and all of
Right.
that. Like and I'm always going to be the advocate for college basketball, anyways. But I'm even going to be a bigger advocate for guys that are able to put them and their families in better situations. Because you got to think about it too. Some of these guys are like no, like all eyes are on them when it comes to them and their family. Nobody has opportunities at making millions within their family. Just imagine how many different things that people are hearing from so many different people within families. Like they are essentially carrying families on their back. And that's something I don't think a lot of people really pay attention to or talk about. But not even just the G League route. Like we're seeing guys that are talking about going to different institutions outside of Dukes and Kentucky. I mean, Colin Sexton went the Alabama route.
Right.
Cade Cunningham, for a different reason, went the Oklahoma State route. Like I think we're starting to see guys kind of wanting to put a stamp on a program themselves, and not just kind of be like another number to some of those blue blood institutions that are clearly struggling right now. Because Duke and Kentucky ain't the only one. You got Duke, you got Kentucky, you got Carolina, but Michigan State's not a top 25 team, who typically are.
Right.
Arizona in that same conversation. Louisville is in that same conversation. Let me get my handy dandy notebook, and I promise you I'm not going to be long. But UCLA just got into the top 25.
Yeah, they did.
UConn just got into the top 25. They took a loss already this week. They won't last there much longer. Kansas is trending down in a major way. Indiana's not what it used to be. Syracuse, we almost kind of forgotten that they're even a team at this point because nobody even talks about them. Memphis, everybody thought
Penny.
what Juwan Howard is doing at Michigan, everybody thought Penny was going to do at Memphis. So I don't think nobody's really questioning some of those guys, Patrick Ewings, and some of those guys from a recruiting standpoint, but more so from an X's and O's clipboard standpoint.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned like a guy like Juwan Howard and what he's doing at Michigan. He has put the program up, like as opposed to what Jim Harbaugh is doing for the football team. But
and with the number one recruiting class in the country coming in next year for Juwan Howard too, that's
what I was getting
that's a
ready to say,
statement.
because I'm not sure if with Juwan being able to sit on the bench in the NBA and having that coaching experience as opposed to a guy like Pat Ewing. Pat Ewing did sit on the bench at various places, but Juwan seemingly, I don't know, I don't want to say he prepared himself more, but he seemingly took it more serious, and you're seeing the benefits of it now. Like, I don't think when people think of Patrick Ewing, people think of New York Knicks, and only the older crowd thinks of Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sit into a parent's living room, when people think of Juwan Howard, you typically think of the Fab Five. That's the first thing that,
No doubt.
if you're of that age and you know who Juwan Howard is, you typically think of Fab Five. So you automatically, your mind switches to college basketball. But if you're sitting with Patrick Ewing or I'm trying to think of another coach, that you'll typically think of the NBA first.
Chris Mullin, I think he was in that
Right.
conversation. A lot of those guys. Penny Hardaway, most people don't
And
think college, most
you
people
don't you
think
don't think
NBA.
Memphis right offhand. You think of
Hmm.
Orlando or Phoenix.
Hmm.
You think about his NBA career as opposed to his collegiate career, and I think that
Hmm.
might help Juwan when it comes to. I mean, along with him and his personality, and because you can see that this dude genuinely cares for the young men that he brings into his program. I think that is an advantage that he has in terms of uh, in recruiting.
I think it is, based on the fact that like something else that Juwan got going for himself. Like, first of all, he's a player's coach, but I think he has a good balance of being a coach's coach too. The way that he disciplines his guys is not all about like shout matches, and he'll dig into you if that's what he has to do. But I think that that's something that helps is being able to create a balance, and a lot of these young guys are relatable to him. He's an overall good guy on top of that. Like any on top of that, anybody that could just pick up the phone and call LeBron and got LeBron's number, you're already on the recruiter. You already have an edge already, anyways.
Right.
Because it's like that's all the new kids like look like it's a millennial thing. So it's like, oh, you know LeBron. Like maybe if you threw somebody else out there, they'd be like Michael Jordan. All right, that's cool. I know him for his tennis shoes. But like if you throwing out LeBron out there, like that is a lot of the new modern day kids like Michael Jordan and GOAT conversations and whatever else, what have you. I
Right.
think all of those things help. All of those things significantly help. And there's been some guys that I have come in contact with and interacted with personally and have just raved about Juwan Howard and his recruiting style and how clean he is about everything all across the board. You look at Chet Holmgren, who's the number one player in the country right now as a senior. He said he's definitely going the collegiate route. Okay. And he's got 5 schools that he's talking about going to. And Michigan is one of them. While
Right.
Georgetown is one of them, I don't think that he'll go there. While Carolina is one of them, he probably won't go there. I think it'll be Gonzaga at the end of the day. But there's guys that are transferring from other institutions and looking for somewhere to go. And Michigan is on their list as well. I mean, top guys, you name it. He's putting Michigan in a position, long story short, where they've kind of gone from an afterthought to all of a sudden Juwan getting there. And when they're releasing their top 12, top 10, top 8, top 5 teams that they decide that they're going to decide to play for and go to, Michigan is still in the running. And with that, I think he's clearly doing something that some of the other guys aren't.
Well, it's interesting that we talk about this because I was just looking at something who was basically it was saying this could be the ushering out of the old guard in like your Bayheims, your Roy Williams, your Coach K's. This could be ushering those type coaches out and ushering in a new coach such as Juwan Howard. You know, some of these guys. So do you think the time has come? I think you mentioned like a different style of coach, being a player's coach. Do you think a time has come where coaches that are in your face that style has pretty much run its course?
Not necessarily. And I don't think it's necessarily bad for coaches to still be that way because you get a lot of kids who's coming in as a top ranked whatever or however many ranked whatever, that feels like they've got a sense of entitlement about themselves and that they're gonna just come in there and be whatever they want to be. But the crazy part is now is like when we were growing up, players needed coaches to solidify themselves and to better themselves. It's not like that no more. Like nowadays, coaches need the players
Right.
to keep their jobs and so forth. And I think now that that's been kind of turned around and players see that, parents see that, they know these things. It helps for guys like Coach K who can pick up the phone too and give a call and say, "Hey, KD,
Yep.
check this out." You know what I'm saying? Hey, LeBron, because it ain't the only ones that can reach out to LeBron. Very few coaches can reach out to somebody like LeBron. He's certainly one of them. And Cal has a long list. I mean, you look
And
at
they have
all
the
the
Olympic
guards,
connection.
huh?
Yeah, so they had an Olympic connection.
Olympic connection, correct. And
Yeah.
so you have guys like Coach Cal, who's like, listen, you can listen to him or you can listen to him. But check this out. My guys is going at the top of the list.
Right.
My guys, here they all are right here. They all talk to you. Number one Wall, number one Rose, Anthony Davis, this person, that person, boom, boom, boom. And that's hard to go against as well. So that's why I think that to an extent, some of those blue bloods are going to choose to go there anyway, just based off of the relationship that some of those coaches have with those players. But some of the other ones, man, when it comes to Arizona's and even in some cases, Michigan State, I know Imani Bates or whatever, what have you. But there's going to be some, man, that are just, it's Jim Boeheim. It's not, it doesn't appear to be looking real good for him, in the near future.
And you mentioned Imani Bates. Has he committed there? Has he already committed there?
He's a verbal commit to Michigan State. He did that over last summer. And while there's been so much speculation about how we won't see him in a green and white Michigan State uniform, and that he's probably going to be a straight to the league dude, I think that because of COVID and how long that has been extended, that's been more so at the front of the commissioner and Adam Silver amongst the decision makers' minds, more so than it has the trying to lift the age restriction. That's now more on the back burner because of everything else that they've had to deal with the pandemic. So with that, there's been some rumblings over the course of the last 2 weeks that Imani Bates is going to reclassify and end up at Michigan State with a super crazy recruiting class. And I just told you, Michigan's got the number one recruiting class in the country coming in. So just imagine what that rivalry is going to look like. But nonetheless, it'll be interesting. Who knows? He might decide to go the G League route, but now because of the NIL, the name, image, and likeness, you could be able to make money off of yourself that way. So there's still a lot to it's still kind of quite a bit of layers to the onion, if you will. Like Imani was just on the same team because he has his own school now in Ipsy Prep. Him and the point guard, who's also a Michigan State commit for next year, named Jalen Akins. Both of those guys supposed to be coming on to Michigan State. So they were playing together at Ipsy Prep. And then all of a sudden, one thing after another, Jalen Akins got kicked. He got kicked off the team, off of Imani Bates high school team. So now he's going to play elsewhere. And now both of these guys are just going to, I guess Tom Izzo's going to have his hands full trying to juggle two guys who not getting along or seeing things on the same page if he bring them both in next year. But that's what he get all the big bucks for.
So we talked about the Ignite team, and we mentioned names like Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga because, and this is my problem with the Ignite team, we don't get to see them. Mm-hmm. And part of the draft, like the excitement of the draft, is being able to select one of the guys that you know. Mm-hmm. Because we don't get to see these guys, it's almost like, unless you're an advocate follower of high school basketball, it's almost like, who? I heard that name before, but we drafted, huh?
Yeah.
So just for people that are listening, like I said, quick run through of, like, if you could, like, Jalen Green, what have you been hearing about his game? Because I think both of them, they've been putting up pretty good numbers from what I've read in the G League. But what have you kind of heard about their games? Kind of quick description.
Well, Jalen Green is one of them dudes who I've been watching him, man, since he was going into the 10th grade. Long wingspan, long legs, long arms, which is always going to be huge going into a draft situation. Crazy athletic, a really good free throw shooter, that's for sure. And can shoot it from the outside. Would like to see him get a little bit stronger, but he's finesse. And a lot of these guys, it's not about bulk anymore.
Right.
Can you run? Check. Okay, cool. Can you jump? Yes, check. Okay, come on. We want you over here on our team. Like, that's essentially what this game is becoming to be about. In terms of IQ, I don't think he's terrible at it. The jump shot could use some improvement. He's going to the basket. I mean, it's really hard to stop him just because of the way that he can torque and twist his body in the air. And things like that, and be able to protect the basketball at the same time. And he's strong. You just looking at him, he's skinny, but he's skinny strong, if that makes sense. You got some guys that's just skinny strong. He's like a skinny strong dude.
DeShaun.
Yeah, it's similar. Similar, very similar. And so with that, he's just one of those type of guys. Guys like Jonathan Kaminga is a guy who has a little bit more size, obviously, and I wouldn't necessarily say more versatility, but he just kind of reminds me of a young. This is a guy that I watched when he was in high school, and I'm sure you're familiar with it because he played at Norcross. He reminds me a little bit of Al Farouk Aminu when he was coming out. Now, I expect for him to be better than Al Farouk Aminu, of course. But Al Farouk Aminu wasn't no joke, and he was highly ranked coming out too. So
He
he kind of
hasn't.
just he just reminds me of him with a very similar playing style. He's got a little bit of a twist to him that is a little bit different, but yet still somebody that's obviously very solid. But my question is like for some of these guys, are they special? Like, I'm not sure I see special. Really
Okay.
good? No doubt. Special? Kaminga? I don't know if I see special like that.
So speaking of, and as we're talking about the draft, the NBA draft, I'll give you three names, just really quickly, three names, and I'll kind of give you a comparison that I've been hearing, or that maybe that I've peeped about these three
Mm,
guys, and you can tell me, am I off? Am I right? Am I wrong? Or
mm.
and just give me your take on it. So one of the top guys, like I said, the top guy in the draft is arguably Cade Cunningham. I Once I heard the name that he was being compared to, I saw it, but I still didn't like it just because you know my feelings about it. But the name was Luka Doncic. So in terms of game, like I saw it, he can handle the ball. If you're talking about six, I think it was like 6'8", 6'8",
No, he ain't that tall. But
not
he
that
is a
big.
big but he's a big guard, though, that's for sure. He's probably a little bit closer to that 6'6" ish up in that range.
Okay, so just looking at him, I haven't, like I said, I haven't really checked his measurement. Just looking at him, he looked, and that
That's
may be
fine.
because of wingspan. But like I said, the name Luca. Once I saw it, I was like, okay, I kind of see. Like I said, he can handle the ball. He's good on the pick and roll, from what I saw. He can get to the basket, and he has a decent size. He has a decent size, decent
Hmm.
wingspan. Um, but Luca was one name, and then Ben Simmons was another.
Mm.
Like I said, now you jump in at any moment and say, nah, that's some bull, or yes, I like it. No, I don't.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I think, I mean, as far as the Luca stuff, I think where they're similar to me is the fact that they both are big guards.
Mm,
So that works in their favor. Like, is Luca like the purest of the purest point guards that you've ever
no.
seen? Probably not. Okay. But for him to be that size, it's pretty freaking impressive. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so I've always been one that's loved big prototypical NBA bodyguards. You know what I mean? Like, it's something hits me a little bit different when I see Chauncey Billups that can post the dude up. Not even that he's the tallest dude, but because he is that, he's strong. And I
Right.
think that that's where Cade and Cade reminds me from a vision standpoint, not the fancy stuff, but just he keeps it simple. That's what I love about Cade. Cade keeps it simple. He's not trying to go and do nothing wild and crazy. He sees up the floor very similar to the way that LaMelo Ball does. If you
Okay.
see LaMelo Ball on an outlet or whatever, he'll throw that thing full court all the way down. But and it's right on the money. And very few guys can do that. And that's not just vision, but that's also just having just a natural touch that you can't teach a person. Either they got that or they don't.
Right.
And he always keeps his head up on the play, but because he is a big guard, and it essentially it comes easy to him. Now, the unfortunate part is that not a lot of people are really going to pay attention to it because, like, the guys that are on his team are not guys of his standard, his caliber of talent. You know what I mean? There's going to be times when you might think that Cade Cunningham made a bad pass because the guy he was giving it up to, the recipient, fumbled it out of bounds. You'd be like, dude, that was a terrible pass. No, in some cases, it's the guy who was catching the ball,
Right.
wasn't paying attention or doing what he was supposed to be doing or in his position. So I think when it comes to Cade, I love his vision. I love his size. Is he special? I still don't know yet, because I like to see these guys on another level. But I'll tell you this much: he appears to be special to me based on the fact that not only does he love to win and has an aura about himself in terms of being passionate about the game, very knowledgeable, high IQ, but more so because of the fact that like he gets it and he looks like he's out there right now, like almost like man amongst boys in a different way than Zion, but definitely up here. He's definitely playing with boys right now.
So the next name I want to throw out is Evan Mobley.
Mm.
7-footer.
Mm-hmm.
He appears he can handle the ball, decent shot.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Davis.
Mm-mm.
Now tell me
I
why. Why not?
no, I don't see him as that same kind of rim protector. Like on the next level, dude, like you're going to be going up against 7-footers that are more athletic than you and can do stuff that you probably only thought guards could do, and I'm not sure he's prepared for that. So from a defensive standpoint and rim protection, I don't think he's that. But one thing I will say is that I do see some of those comparisons that very slightly that some people were making to like a Chris Bosh because of the fact that he
Okay.
does have that slender body. He can hit mid-range shots, which I think is good in this league. And sometimes I question if he's playing as hard as he can or what. Like, is this the best of him or not? And he's not necessarily playing with the best players around him either. And there's quite a few guys that are freshmen that's going to be lottery picks that you could probably say that about this year. Joshua Christopher being another one. But in terms of rebounding, second chance points, things like that, I mean, Evan Mobley is looking like he's looking like a lightweight beast. I mean, I would like to see him get a little bit more physical and embrace contact and things like that a little bit more. But he can block some shots. Don't get it twisted. Um, I just want to see. Sometimes I want to see those California dudes mix it up in there a little bit more, get a little bit more physical, and get a little bit more aggressive. That's my thing. So I'm not trying to blast the West Coast or nothing like that, but
So
I would just like to see him particularly get a little bit more aggressive.
I will ask, since you brought it up, you're using the word, is he special?
I don't think he's special. But much like Cade Cunningham, I think that he can be. Like I think he has tools to be, but I don't see very many guys who are special, but they're not very physical. Like unless you telling me, and I know Timmy was physical in his own way too over time. Like
Right.
unless you telling me that your approach to the game is going to be very mild, much like Tim Duncan, but it doesn't really look like the most physical person, then that's something a little bit different. But these are guys that are cut different. Special, I don't know. It's still way too early to say because a lot of these games are also being canceled. And unfortunately, it's against some of the best competition, too.
Right. So the last name I want to throw out at you is Jalen Suggs. I mean, I've heard a bunch of different comparisons in
That
terms of.
kid's special, man. That kid's special.
There we go. Okay,
That kid's
so
special.
one comparison, I guess, because and I've watched a couple games, and I understood it was the Russell Westbrook comparison, just the athleticism, just in the his thriving in a fast paced offense, like in a
Mm,
fast pace.
mm,
When him getting out on the floor, I saw rust in that. But I've
mm,
also heard Dame Lillard. Um,
mm,
I've heard Jamal Murray. So you've already told me he was special. Like,
mm.
am I? Which one of those comparisons are on? Which ones are off?
I don't really see the Westbrook stuff like that for real, nearly as much just because I think he's a different kind of competitor than I see in NBA now in general. And that's not a knock on Suggs. I just want to see him be able to, but he's a competitor. Like you can tell, he doesn't like to lose. There was times when this team was up by a ton of points on somebody early part of the season, and he went down with an injury. They took him to the back, taped him up. They could have sat him. They was up by a ton of points, but he came back out there because he really wanted to play and finish the game. Like that was important to him. Physicality is not a problem for him. He's a Mr. Basketball out of the state of Minnesota, and Mr. Football out of the state of Minnesota. So physicality is not something that he doesn't have a strong suit in. Um, the Dame Lillard stuff, I'm not sure if there's really like an exact comparison for him, but I do think some of the guys that you mentioned, you could take bits and pieces of those guys and implement it into Suggs. Like Suggs is a pinpoint passer, much like Cade Cunningham is. I think he's just in a really good system, obviously, and he's going to be successful in it, but he would be successful anywhere. Like he's just blowing this thing out of the water. Like so many people are talking about so many different guys, and then next thing you know, Jalen Suggs just hit the streets, and it's like, man, like this dude can really, really play. Like I don't care who you put him up against, and he's just a freshman. Like this dude's really good. I think he's going to challenge Cade, Evan, or anybody else for contention of being the number one pick in the draft, man. And I mean, I like him a lot. And coming from me, somebody to say that, sometimes I'm all right on this guy. This guy is all right, or he's definitely above average, but I'm not sure that he's really great like that. Like this dude looks really, really good. And for somebody that I wasn't as high on him, like I just had to be seen first. It's not that I didn't dislike him, but I just had to be seen first. And when he showed me, he showed, and he's been showing consistently. And like that, I always have to tip my cap because just like how you can come on and say I was wrong about this guy or that guy, that's a guy that while I didn't do too much over judgment, I was wrong with some of the little things that I kind of thought that he would pan out to be.
Well, shoot, that's about all, man. I wanted to just pick your brain a little bit. But what I do want to do is once we start getting closer, whatever happens, I'm not sure how the NCAA is going to um, set this whole tournament up. I know they're not trying to miss it. I know they're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to miss that money. So they're going to have
Mm-hmm.
to put something together. And so when we get closer to that time, I want to go back and forth with you about who are some of the teams to watch out for. Who are some of the teams
Okay.
that we don't know, that we haven't seen, that we need to know, and
Mm-hmm.
then to see from there to continue to talk about like the draft and things like that. So once again,
No doubt.
I want you to go ahead, give them your takes, take.
At Tate's Take Hoops, man, on social media, all social media platforms, specifically on Twitter, TateStakehoops. We like to call it where basketball lives. The best, the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast. See it anywhere that you find any of your favorite podcasts: iTunes, Google Podcasts, Red Circle, Spotify, Stitcher, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and on Periscope as well. And just appreciate you for allowing me to share this space, man, and this platform with you, G Rob. I'm thankful. Just a couple teams that I want to let the people know to keep their eyes and their ears open for until
Let's
the
do it.
next time. This Alabama team, man, is really strong, dude. I think they're unbeaten in the SEC. They're on like a 7 or 8 game win streak. They're very tough. Keep your eyes on Utah State is on like a 10 or 11 game win streak themselves. I'm trying to think of who else. Boise State is looking really, really good out of the Mountain West Conference. So they're another one. St. Louis is another one that you want to keep your eyes and your ears open for out of the Atlantic 10 as well. And I feel like I want to give you one more. Texas is obviously good. Michigan, people are hip to them. Maybe, arguably, the most disrespected team in the top 10 or maybe even the top 25. Kelvin Sampson-led Houston Cougars, man, is a really good team. They may not jump off the page or jump out the TV screen at you or anything like that, but they know how to win basketball games. When you look at who's leading those dudes, as far as from coaching standpoint, you could probably understand why. So don't just see that they're in the American Athletic Conference. It's like, well, they ain't really playing nobody like that. These guys can play with anybody. I think more so than anything. They're just looking to show that, they can play on the big stage with the big boys.
And there it is. He's DeShaun Tate. I'm Gordon Robinson, Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner's Conversation. Until next week, once again, with me, you can check me out also at G Robinson Sports on Twitter, at the.commissioner.gordon. Tate loves that. And also check me out, the audio, the podcast of the Commissioner's Conversation. You can check it out every Wednesday. Also on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, everywhere podcasts are played. All you have to do,
subscribe to that. Subscribe to my dude, man.
Yes,
this
sir.
Dude be coming with the heat, man. Thank me later, bro. I promise you, y'all want to make sure that y'all doing that. That's for sure.
Yes, sir. So check us out. All you got to do is go to Coffee and Kush. That's coffee with the K, KOFFEE, and Kush, KUSH, and we'll be right there. You'll see the Commissioner's Conversation. So check us out. Check out Text Tape, and we'll holler at you next week.